Welcome to the bright side of the moon, a journey of magic and wonder, and most of all, beauty.
Chapter 3 Meeting the Parents and the New York City Carnegie Hall gig, November 15th, 1971. I felt like a trooper by the time we came back to New York City. I'd made friends with all the road crew as well. Nancy Steele was a lovely girl who traveled with the crew, and most nights she sat at the mixer. She was a sweetheart. I especially loved how David would always go out at the end of a gig and say, "Ta-ra, night," waving his hands in the air. He continued to do this over the years. I loved his heart and his honor towards his team, who helped make the show possible. He was gentle and caring, though most of the time held in his silent, quiet English way. The number of times I heard and experienced the truth of those words are innumerable. This aspect of their culture floats over my life memories. Sometimes it's poetic, sometimes not, especially for an American whose nature was to be free with her joy and her feelings. I have learned a lot being with them. I've become a universal citizen, experiencing many other ways of being, and cultures have opened my mind and heart further to love humanity in all our unique differences. To find unity, to love and appreciate that we're all children of God with a divine spark waiting to shine. Shine on speaks loudly to us all. David's parents, Doug and Sylvia, came to the gig, and we went out to dinner with them afterwards. I was a bit nervous to meet them, but it turned out to be quite special. Another day we went to their home. They had an apartment in the village, simple and filled with treasures they loved. Sylvia and I had lots in common. We loved beauty. She was just like the images in the movies of the gentle English rose in her flowing dresses. Her quiet demeanor hid another aspect of her nature, which later would be revealed to me. She was intelligent, highly creative, and a bundle of joy. She was a film editor, and when I shared my story about leaving the film, she was touched. For she was happy her son found the love of someone who loved so deeply. Over the years, we became very good friends. We got along really well. David's dad was quiet, even more so than Sylvia. He was a geneticist, and it took a while for me to get used to his eyes that observed. They were very much awake, silently piercing and yet thoughtful. He kept a lot to himself, and I never knew what he was thinking half the time, except when he was cooking. I loved how close they were with each other. The bond of love between them helped make me feel comfortable being in their presence. I often found them dancing in the kitchen to a favorite song playing on the radio or in the garden amongst their white roses. They loved life. Then it was time, the gig at Carnegie Hall. That hall just left such an impression upon me. It's so opulent. It was the 20s, which I'd never really knew about, but it opened up my interest. The stage had a circular part, which could rise from below. Arthur Max made sure to use it, I assure you. For when the music began, it seemingly was coming from out of the darkness. We didn't know about this stage below, but there it was. The sound of set the controls for the heart of the sun emerging out of the darkness. I can still hear Roger hitting the gong, somewhat quietly at first. Rick's melodic playing with the repetitive thumping notes of David's guitar held us hypnotized in the darkness. And then the lights, from red to blue and back again. The tone of Roger's voice piercing the air, merging with David's ah, created a sound transporting us to being in an Egyptian tomb. Nick kept it all in a continuous beat, eventually building the pace. Red beacons swirled as Roger returns to the gong, madly beating it. The gong sets alight with crashing sounds. The audience gasps, holding their breath within the tension, listening. The music drifts and falls upon us, while the only light is flickering in the gong that shaped the band's silhouette. The celestial sounds took us further to Heart of the Sun, and as the song quietly ends, the next one, Adam Heart Mother, becomes. Such a moment to remember. I have to say, Carnegie Hall, the building itself, so impressed me. It was like I was waking up to another part of American culture that I had no idea about, even though I used to dance to all the Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movies, but it never clicked until that evening. I mean, I was raised as a Coast Guard brat, in a way. I knew more about the bases, large boats, and the canteen, where my sister and I used to dance the polka after catechism every week, and we drank Shirley Temples. So this is another thing. It's like now I had the fever for discovering more about American culture and the architecture. It's really special. You should look into it. But what I also would like to say about this chapter is that as I was writing it, I was listening to the music again. Set the controls for the Heart of the Sun. It was, and still is, very, very special. And as I was listening to it, my daughter, who lived in Florida at the time, Claire, our second daughter, called. They usually call every morning before Brianna goes off to school. And on this morning, I said to her, Claire, would you like me to read you a bit of my book? And she says, what book? Hang on, get that hair out of my face. I said, my life story. I'm writing my life story. He says, really? Are you going to tell our stories too? I said, listen, girl, you are so part of my story. All my children, the pregnancies, the deliveries, the cuddles, and every one of you are magic, and I love you to bits. After we hung up, I realized that this book is not only about my journey of self-discovery and the importance of loving each other. It was also about letting my children know the love from which they were born. And it's a special story which I will share with you as we go deeper into the book. Of course, you could buy it and read it sooner. And I would appreciate you having that too. So, chapter 4 to come. I look forward to it. Thank you. Bye.